So, 6 weeks ago, we started a series called Family Ninja Warrior, and the whole idea is that it takes all of us to train a generation for the Lord. And whether you have your own kids, or whether you're part of our church family, or whether you're a grandparent, or whatever it is, it's all of our responsibility to train this generation for the Lord, and it's not easy. It's very intentional. So we were talking about what are some things that we need to do to help train that generation. And the first week, we talked about prayer. It starts with prayer, right? So the first week we said, hey, listen, man, whoever God has placed in your life, make sure that you're having a daily time with the Lord praying for them. So if you started that for a couple of weeks and then drifted away, go back. Start there. Who has God placed in your life? Whether you're a teacher or a grandparent, an uncle, God places people in your lives that He's calling you to pray for. So set aside some time daily and pray for them, that God would strengthen them and encourage them and guide their footsteps.
Yeah, and the next week we talked about race against the clock, how our time is limited. We only have our children, whether they're ours or our grandkids or in our classroom, for a short period of time.
I'd be sending them off to college like in 5 days.
Oh, stop reminding me. So, yeah, you only have them for a short time, and so we can only parent them. Well, we get to parent them a lot, but to just pour into their lives, whatever time we have, we need to realize we're racing against the clock, and we have to help these young people own their faith. We heard the statistic that only 30% keep their faith in their 20s when they leave home. So that means 70%, if they were raised in a church, fall away. And so we need to be the example and to fight against that and to realize that we are racing against the clock. Another one was you have a team, which I like that one. I love having a team. So we're part of a team. The first one was your spouse, and so that's awesome. They get your water. And so it's great to have that team. That doesn't always happen for people. Different circumstances, God designed it that way, but different circumstances come up, and there's separation, and maybe people pass away, and so you don't have that person, but God designed it that way to start with. Yeah. And then you have your church family, which comes alongside and just
everybody should give somebody a high five. I'm just saying, that's what I would do, just high five, because that's your family. You're not doing it. Richard Davenport. Come on, man. Go ahead, sorry.
So, yeah, your church family embarrasses you and everything.
That's what families do. We embarrass each other. Yes.
Also, seek out a mentor, someone that can speak into your life, someone you can speak into their lives. Hey, if you haven't done that, make sure you call someone and say, hey, let's get some coffee going, or whatever your cup of tea is, whatever you would say, and let's see what we can do. Find someone that you can pour into as well. And then the next week we talked about friendships. I think we had 2 weeks maybe on friendships, did we?
I don't know.
Friends are so important, and we so need them. And wow, just no matter what age you are, if you're 8 or 80, you have to have some solid people in your life, because we talked about the inner core, or the inner...
The inner core, the outer core, and essentially the no core.
The no core.
Inner they, outer they.
You have to have like-minded people, or we're not going to make it. Yep. So, some good stuff.
Yeah, and so last week was a topic no one liked. Right? Maybe some of you really liked the topic. I don't know, but that's a whole other issue. So last week we really talked about part one of hidden obstacles. We talked about the power of the internet and really hit the pornography part of it, and how really it is destroying our culture. Adults, yes, but even this next generation of kids, I think the numbers are, by the time they're 17, I think it's like 97% or 92%.
For boys, yeah.
For boys will have viewed internet pornography at least once. They say that the number for the first time you're exposed, I think it's like 8 years old, just because of the nature of wired devices. And so we talked about, set some stuff up, set up guidelines. That doesn't even talk about sexual predators or sexting or bullying or how to make bombs or all kinds of crazy stuff out there. But our job is to parent, to lead, right? Yes. So I'll give you the answer to that question. The answer is yes. Our job is to lead and to make, that's our job, right? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's good. So we're going to kind of continue that today, but maybe a little bit different, just kind of continuing on some more. What are some more of the concerns that we have or that's really kind of happening today that are keeping us from really being the person that God wants us to be and our kids from being the people that God wants them to be?
It's true. So some internet concerns that we have, or maybe the apps. Do you remember when apps first came out? There was like, there's an app for that. There's an app for everything.
Yeah.
And
an app is basically like, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but is Eric Walker here? Oh boy.
Give us the definition of an app.
So yeah, what is the legal definition of an app? An app is essentially a self-contained program that accesses the internet or other things itself. Kind of, Eric, sort of maybe shake yes or no. So okay, thank you, yeah. But self-contained.
For me, it's a little square on my tablet, and I push it, and it does great things.
Yeah.
It can be great, connect you to things. It can teach you foreign language.
Gloria a Dios.
Yeah.
Español.
It can. You can listen to music. I love to listen to books. There's just a world of apps out there that are great.
Bible apps.
There is Bible apps,
Yep.
devotional apps, all kinds of great things. But they can also be dangerous. And so an app cannot be monitored.
Yeah.
So we talked about using MobiSipe.
Yep.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
MobiSipe, you can monitor what apps your kids put on, and then you don't always know what's going to happen inside that app.
Yeah.
What's going on in there, what they can click to get elsewhere, maybe in that app.
Yes.
So it can be dangerous that way. They can open up worlds of crazy stuff, such as, we talked about last week, pornography. Some of the ones that we were thinking about that were kind of like the main ones was a very popular app, Twitter. All of us staff don't go on Twitter. We don't have Twitter because they just blatantly have porn on there.
They do.
And so,
and most people don't know that.
Yeah, and it's up there, with Facebook, Twitter. And so a few years ago, you brought that to our attention. None of us have that because we don't want to be a part of that where they just, on Facebook you can put, I don't like that picture. They shouldn't have that. Twitter, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
And another one is like Reddit, a Tumblr, which is like a blogging app. They are okay with having whatever you want on there.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was having lunch this week, and I saw a friend of mine. And we started talking about the Sunday message, and he was saying how he was driving in his car with his daughter. I don't know how old she was, but I'll just say 6 or 7, somewhere around there. But he was driving in the car and playing like one of the iPads, a kid's game. And she kept saying, oh, another what was it, like a pop-up or something came up. And she'd shut it down. Oh, another one. And she'd shut it down. And finally, a good dad that he is, said, hey, listen, honey, next time that happens and you get that pop-up thing, let me know. I want to see what it is. And so he's driving, happens again. He looks at it, and it is full-blown porn on a kid's app. And rightfully so, he flips, which he should, right? And so I'm just saying that parents, leaders, teachers, we have to be aware of just what's out there. We're not saying that apps are evil, that internet's the evil. We're just saying that we have to lead. We have to be alert. We have to be responsible for what happens around us. So,
well, it's a perfect example of how they are targeting our young people. They want them to get trapped in this world of pornography or whatever at a young age so they can't break that addiction. So there is just regular apps that have things like that going on that are hidden, but there's also some dangerous apps that are out there as well. If you Google search for yourself, put in dangerous apps for teens, it'll give you a whole list. We're not going to share all those today, but as a parent, you got to know what they are so when you're looking at your kid's device, because we all know we're going to do that.
Yes.
We're going to look at those devices.
We're going to do that, amen? And so, so there's an insert. Hopefully you got the insert.
There's a little booklet in there to help you out.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's also things called vault apps, which are kind of like ghost apps, so they cover up apps.
So they open up your phone or something, and it looks like a calculator, but it's not. It's something in disguise.
Yeah. Which is crazy that they made those. But so click on those apps in there and see what's going on.
Yeah. Another concern that has been arising, actually, another person, this was a really good week. Somebody else spoke to me from our church, Jesse Fuller, who's a youth advocate, did some studying on emojis. And I'm 44. I guess I was pretty naive. I am naive sometimes. I didn't think I was, but apparently I am. But
Not emoji kind of guy.
yeah, I'm not really an emoji. Let's be honest, I hate emojis.
He never sends me an emoji.
I don't.
His texts always
Yeah.
look mad.
Yeah, I do like a smiley face, right? So
He sends me the fake smiley face, you know.
anyway, yeah, I'm sure you do. So Jessie Fuller shares how she did a study from youth advocates, as a youth advocate, about emojis, and she was talking about it that, and some of you know this, that several of the emojis actually have a hidden meaning. Who knew? Like, I didn't know. What's like an eggplant could have a different meaning.
I'm not helping you out with
Who
this.
knew? Some of you are laughing because you know. Some of you have no idea. But anyway, so that's just the silly ones.
Yeah, I want to stay in my innocent
Yeah,
world.
but the other ones, though, that she was very concerned about, and this was actually a study done by BBC, and it has to do with kind of the drug culture. A lot of the drug culture has been using apps of recent to kind of share what's available, where it is, and I'd be clueless. And so and I'm not saying emojis are of the devil. Maybe they are. I don't know. I'm not a big
there's
emoji
cute
guy.
little poop emojis.
Yeah, who does a poop emoji?
I don't know,
Like,
it's cute.
we went to the fair. We went to the fair, and they had,
giant poop emojis that want little hugs. They got little hands.
what's this world coming to? I'm just saying. I want to give a piece of poop a hug. It doesn't even make sense. Is it ice cream, chocolate ice cream? Is that what they say? Yeah. Okay, Mom.
I saw the preview for the movie, so
So just be aware. Not that context is big. And so if your kid is sending some emojis out and they're like contextually it makes sense, that's cool. But being alert that if the emojis don't really fit within the context, there might be something deeper happening, and then, figure it out. Parent, right? Get involved, get in the middle of it, make some people mad, whatever you have to do, but figure out what's going on. So be careful. We talked about the apps, emojis.
we actually had an incident where a
Yes.
child had received a text from someone they didn't really know, and it had some emojis in there, and so that person went to look them up on the internet.
this
Just
emoji
like, I
means.
wonder why are they sending me this? What does this mean? And it meant something really horrific and
Yes.
led to very graphic pictures.
Yes.
And so just being aware of that kids could get those sent to them, and they don't know what they are. They're just trying to figure out. Kids love emojis.
That's so cute.
And so just, don't freak out, but be like, oh, you know what? We got to be careful with what's going on.
The third concern that we're going to spend most of the time on today, and again, this isn't one of those fun messages, but we need to know it. So please, if you don't have your notes out, take your notes out. This is really important. So there's a third area that really, how many in this room own a smartphone? Just raise your hand. Okay. How many connect to the internet in some way? Okay, everyone put your hands down. How many of you do not have access to the internet in any way, shape, or form? No access. How many? No access. 1, 2,
She's got 2 hands up.
3.
And
Yeah, so I'm seeing 3 people that don't have access to the internet. The rest of you, this applies for you. For you 3 that didn't raise your hands, just pray. You know what I mean? Just
I'm sure
pray.
they know people that enter the internet.
Enter the internet
yeah,
world.
Access that.
Yes.
They might have a grandchild or a child.
But one of the big concerns that's been not talked about a whole lot in America, but it is in other countries, is let me just call it, that sounds weird, but smartphone addiction. There's an addiction for everything. But yeah, this is totally legit. China described that they identified internet addiction. They're actually calling it IAD as their number one health crisis in China, with more than 20 million internet addiction teens. South Korea has opened 400 tech addiction rehab facilities. They give every student and every teacher and every parent a handbook warning them of the potential danger of screens and technology. In other words, this has kind of become a new topic of recent, that many of us are actually kind of become a little bit addicted to our smartphone devices or electronics. I know it sounds like old people, doesn't it? Well, let me just kind of explain a few things that have happening because of that. Maybe you'll see if it's true or not.
Yeah, there's study after study have shown that problems overusing your phone can lead to things such as increase in loneliness and depression.
Yeah.
And you think we're so connected to so many people, how can you be lonely? It kind of used to be, you're in a room with 30 people and you're alone, but you're at home with a room of thousands and you're still lonely. So it leads to depression. And actually, the amount of depression has increased.
I think it's up like 250% since 1988. I think
Really?
it's the numbers or something like that.
I didn't know that. But it's increased. The more we use our smartphones or devices, or more we're connected to the internet, the more that depression has increased in people. Internet addiction can lead to this isolation. It's just terrible.
Which is crazy because I have like 1,000 friends. Like, how could I be depressed on Facebook? Doesn't make sense.
Well, and part of that is you start comparing your life to other people's lives. And we talked about that a lot with the teens last week, how if they don't get the accolades that they want, then they start feeling bad about themselves. But that also is for adults as well. If we see someone, post their new car, we're usually not going, woohoo, they got a new car, I'm so excited. Maybe we post that, but there is something that kind of why did I, you have kind of a, even if you're happy for them, you kind of feel like, why do I feel depressed now? I just spent this time on the internet or whatever, and now I feel kind of sad. And if you wouldn't have done that, you wouldn't have gone on there, and you met with that person in real life, your real life friend, you could be like, yeah, that's really great. And you talk to them and have a conversation. It's different than just seeing a post and being like, then you start feeling bad.
Yeah, they actually say that depression right now is one of the number one issues that teens are going with today. I really believe it has a lot to do with smartphone. Because again, they're comparing their life with everybody else's life, and God wired you to connect. And what's happening is we're kind of pulling away a little bit from interconnection. And then we start seeing, most people only post the good stuff, right?
Well, I think people post the really horrible and the really good.
But the in-between every day, mundane.
The, boring stuff, they don't really post about.
Anyway.
And then there's a feeling of anxiety on a rise. I mean, that is like, you always talk to people and they always feel like, I feel so anxious. Well, part of that they have shown is because our smartphones or devices are always beeping and buzzing at us and going off, and we're feeling like, we're trying to do our work or trying to do something else, but we've kind of got that jitter because it's going to go off, and so anxious, feeling that when your phone's not with you, like, what if I miss something? What if something happens and I don't know about it? Or what if someone needs me and they can't get a hold of me? Or, what if my kids
What
call?
did they do before smartphones? I'm just saying, how did life even exist? How did they do it?
You just start feeling anxious, You just start feeling like, oh my goodness. You feel like you're missing out.
Yeah. The third thing that's really, and I'm very guilty of this, is sometimes the high use of internet, especially smartphones or phones, I think for that matter, has really increased the stress level. Now, this is where I'm guilty. I often am glued to you guys every day, all day. So it's hard to put away your social media and your electronic devices when you're engaging people on a constant basis. Does that make sense? And so for me, as a pastor at least, it's very hard, almost impossible, to set it aside and not touch it for a couple hours because there's so much happening and there's so much interaction that sometimes it becomes my whole life. And so that becomes very stressful, very stressful. But I think in many of your jobs, you have very similar, that it's hard to disassociate from your coworkers or whatever it is because it's not just where you go. They all become kind of tangled in this big, yarn ball of a mess. Anybody else feel stressed lately? And I think a lot of it has to do with kind of how we've engaged with electronic devices. Another one that's been really, a lot of studies have been, and this is just coming out because, smartphones aren't real old. They're kind of a new technology, but warnings have been coming out a lot against for attention deficit disorders. And the idea is that, and this is really important, the idea is that we're almost rewiring our mind. And let me just speak to you for a moment. If you've got young kids, just be careful that your device isn't parenting your kids. And I don't mean that negative in the sense that, like you're not being a good parent. I'm just saying that we're wired in such a way that when moments of boredom or moments of feeling a little tension because I have nothing to do. Those are actually good moments for you and for your kids because it allows your brain to figure out, how do I stimulate myself? Does that make sense? I mean, and so what's happening is we're giving ourselves or our kids devices, and what's happening is they're getting flash and screens and screens and screens and screens, and they start not being able to focus on one thing. And not only that, it's also affecting, just the kind of the whole creativity part of our life as well, because again, it's one scene after one scene. If you watch news today, they have the big screen on news. What's on the lower third? More news. And so now we have 3 or 4 screens all at the same time because our brains are just kind of being rewired. So I believe, and some of the studies have verified it, that one of the reasons why we have such an increase in attention deficit disorder and things of that nature is because let me just say it, we have allowed our young people to be so engulfed in the multi-scene that their brains are kind of just becoming normalized with that, and they need that to kind of exist. Does that make sense? But you continue with another one, I think.
Yeah, our ability to concentrate, which you kind of hit on this, and think deeply and be creative, is hard because there's always that constant reminder or that easy fix to get on the computer or whatever, your tablet. And so there's never really those moments where you're just quiet. And for me, I let my devotionals on my phone. So I have to be really careful because many times I'll be reading my devotion and doing my Bible, and then all of a sudden a pop-up will come from Facebook or something, and then I'm on Facebook. And so I have to realize, no, this is a time I have to, it's really hard because we feel like we're always bombarded, but we got to be quiet and have those times, or we're not going to be able to think creatively or even be able to pray and hear from God what he's speaking to us because there's so much noise.
Yeah, you really have to put it away. Creativity, your most creative moments are when your brain's kind of empty, which I feel like I live there sometimes, but your creativity often comes from a void, and out of that void, you can think in a different way. But if your brain's always being filled and you're always Googling stuff, you don't have a moment to just work through life's issues, to find answers yourself. It's so huge. Again, the study after study. I'd recommend a book. Monica, I forget the name of it. I said it earlier.
Glow?
Yeah, I think it's Glow something. Where was that at? Do I get to it later?
I don't know.
Anyway, I'll have to get to it, but it's Glow. Maybe it's called Glow Kids.
Sounds like
But they do this study of how it's affected young people, and it's just an interesting study. As best that they can, new technology, but how it's just impacted our kids and their brains and so forth. So be careful with it. And then finally, I think this one's kind of a no-brainer. The overuse of smartphones, social media, often can lead to narcissism, which is really an oversized emphasis of self-absorption. And so if you're posting stuff about you or your life, you start to think that really people care that you had spaghetti yesterday for supper. You know what I mean? Or you start thinking that, you start basing your life thinking that everything is about you. And honey, it's not. It's just not. And so that's one of the biggest concerns I have with just the overuse of technology is making sure that you don't become the center, that God is always first, and that you're loving others, and then it's you. And so those are some of the signs, some of the warnings of kind of what's happening, I think, in our culture that we're dealing with.
Just something to think about not being so self-absorbed. Something I started doing recently on my Instagram is following a lot of third world countries or people that build wells and stuff, and just to be able to see those pictures every day reminds me that I have running water, because sometimes I forget. So that's a good way to use the internet. But there are some signs that maybe you have a problem. You are addicted to your tablet or your smartphone or the internet. So some signs could be, do you find yourself ignoring your friends when you're with them so you can check out your social updates?
Yes.
So you're like, what did you say?
Anybody guilty? You're hanging out with all your friends and you have no idea what just happened.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I've done that before. Sorry.
Just today. Oh, anyway. This is me? Oh, do you come...
Were you reading something from... No.
I was reading something while she was talking. I totally got disengaged. So Sometimes we can be guilty of driving and seeing our phone go off and thinking, man, I got to answer it now. So that might be a sign that if you feel like you have to be there now, someone needs you so much that you have to answer it now, that might be a sign. And I think we all struggle with that as well. And especially, it's crazy because we know people have died, and yet I think many of us still have the struggle of just put the phone down, just put it down, the world is going to go on. That might be one of the signs that you might have something to deal with.
That you have a problem to deal with. Is your social life, like your normal, your real life, we're all real, is that suffering because of all the time you're spending on your phone or devices? So if you were maybe supposed to go out with some friends or something and you said, no, I'll just stay home, and then you spend the whole night on your device, then
Talking to friends.
It's probably a sign that you have a problem. If you're meeting with friends, we've all been there, we've seen the table full of people and they're all on their smartphones, they're not talking to each other or engaging with each other, you might have a problem. Or if you feel like, this happens a lot, if you feel like you've got more of a connection with your internet world or your followers on Instagram or Snapchat than you do in the real world, like you feel like, man, I just relate to them. They're just awesome people. I mean, I've got some awesome people on Instagram.
Yeah, you've got awesome friends on Instagram.
That I really don't know, and we talked about that. So I probably have, but I have awesome real life friends, and so I have to make sure that.
Not as awesome as their Instagram friends, though.
That's not true. I got a prize today.
I'm
not going to mention it, but I got a prize from a real life friend today.
Did you really?
Yeah, I got a little treat.
I want a friend like that.
I know.
How'd you get that friend? Oh.
I was real with her, I guess. But just making sure, because sometimes we're just in our social world and we forget that, there's real life happening. So you might have a problem or we might have a problem.
Another issue would be, do you ever conceal your smartphone? Like, so no one knows that you're on it? You might have a problem if you kind of if you have to kind of sneak away to check social media and then go back. You might have a problem. Or if you have to go to the restroom, but what you really want to do is just get some updates. Those are all issues that there's some problems happening, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot more too, but we probably should move on. Or this one's important. Do you, and Sunday morning, while your pastor's preaching, do you find yourself on your smartphone? You might have a problem. He might have a problem with you. So, I'm just saying.
You go to check in, and then you never get off.
Yeah, I never check out. So what are some of the solutions? Some of the solutions. And here's another one. Another problem. This is. I have to hit this one.
Oh, I hit that problem.
Okay. Again, have you ever woke up in the middle of the night just so you can check your phone? Or, see, some of you are like, no. Okay, I'm not done yet. Or, is one of the first things you do in the morning get out your phone? So I'm just saying, you don't got to answer me. This is self-evaluation time. If you've been guilty of checking in the middle of the night, or
denial is always.
Yeah, denial is the first sign. If you said no, you have a problem. So if you first thing in the morning, that's what you check, there's probably an issue there, right? If you I take a shower, then I check my phone, there's probably some issues.
I think it was on the Today Show or something, but they were talking about teens that sleep with their phones in the room, which we already know from last week that teens shouldn't have their phones in their room. Yes. Wait till they're 18 so if they have their phone and they're texting someone and say they fall asleep, there's this real problem with teens texting all night and not remembering that they were texting all night. They're sleep texting. And so then their sleep is horrible. And it's kind of like when you, as an adult, you go to sleep, but your mind is still thinking about everything you have to do or something. Well, that's the way these teens are. And then they'll look and be like, I had that whole conversation. So it's not good for them to have that. And it's, which is why we're going to be talking about
some solutions. So what are some of the solutions? Let me give you a few solutions. Again, we're dealing with a lot of topics, whether it be pornography or bullying or apps or addictions, whatever it is. Here's a couple solutions. We hit some of these last week. Again, they're in your notes, so please write. We're adding some more this week, but write these down and put them into practice. Make sure that you have a family-friendly browser. MobiSite we recommend is one. In your house, we recommend Disney Circle. There's other ones. The gentleman that I was referring to with the kids, he uses a thing called ESET, Parent Controls, for his Android, and allows them. But with most of the devices, this has changed in the last couple of years, most of them, now you can actually set up time limits. So if you want an hour, kids don't have an hour or 2 hours, and you'd be shut off by 9 p.m. But do something. Do something. Get a family-friendly browser on your device, and then something for your house.
Yeah. The Circle we like because he can control it on his
Yeah.
smartphone wherever we are. So if the kids are home by themselves and he wants to turn off the internet, he can.
I can tell when someone tries to unplug it. I can pause it. I can,
See who's
I can shut
on.
off all the other apps except the learning app. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, and it's
So you
one
don't,
time.
and it's not even when you're there because
Yes.
your internet is on when you're not home unless you turn it off.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't realize that.
Another one that came up, if you have an Apple. So one of the things we talked about last week, and I spoke with some people this week, is if you have a device and you have a child that wants to use your device or a grandchild or something, making sure that you have a family-friendly filter on that. A couple other things that you can do. Apple has a thing called guided access. And so with guided access with Apple, you can essentially say, hey, with 3 clicks of the home button, this is the apps that will allow this person to see. They also have, Monica, you have this on your phone. What is it? The 2 different logins or different restrictions?
Yeah, you could have 2 different, so you can log in as your child or whatever, and then they can only see what you've let them have on their screens or lock them onto their Netflix or whatever it is.
So there are...
So they can't be roaming around who knows where in
There's
the web.
a lot out there, so just stay informed. And if you need help, talk to Eric Walkery.
No, you would help someone.
I would help anybody. Yes, absolutely.
Don't talk to me because I would just point
She's
you
just going to
to-
ask me. You talk to her, she's going to come back to
I
me.
don't know. I'm just like, here, fix my...
Another thing, Kindle Fire has got some really good stuff, some family-friendly filters. If you really feel like you need kind of game thing for your kid, an iPad, and you're going to use it very, very seldom, that probably would be what I would recommend is something like that because they have good family filters on it.
Yeah. And so also just set some...
That was awesome. That was a setup.
See me jump? That sounds like my ringtone. No, just kidding.
Someone's calling me.
Set time-based restrictions. So we talked about last week that when a child should get a phone is, we believe, we recommend...
I think it's biblical.
16 to get a
Yes.
phone. That allows enough time for them to use it before they move out, so they're not just getting a phone when they're moving
Yes.
out. But you still have to have some guidelines even if they are 16. I understand that you have different worlds. I mean, we have 8-year-olds that are going one night at one house and another at dad's, and so just get them a phone without internet, or if they have a long walk
Flip
home.
phone, just the phone.
A dummy phone. And then be mindful that social media, you can't get onto your 13, so if your child is under that, they shouldn't be,
They're totally
scrolling
lying.
through Snapchat.
Yeah.
But be mindful of that as well, and then, allow them to have certain amount of time on the internet, maybe 1 hour of non-academic, where they're not doing schoolwork, or none on a school night.
Yes.
It just depends on what age they are. You got to think about what age they are and just setting some restrictions.
Again, these
there.
are all in the book. And so the whole point isn't to tell you what to do. The whole point is for you to have a communication with your kids and work out what's best for your family. Is that fair? And but to make sure you're having the communication and you're working things out, that you're not just letting it go. Another one that we really encourage, I don't think this is in your notes, but not before bed. For us, at least for me, I try to put my phone away an hour before I go to bed simply because I can't sleep. If I'm viewing stuff, I'm looking at stuff, my mind is always thinking. And for me, put it away an hour before you think you're going to go to sleep to let your mind just kind of, I don't want to dream about you. You know what I mean? Nothing against people. I want to dream about something else, like heaven. I don't know.
Well, sometimes people post like, this is a crisis, and
Yes.
then you're like stressed about it, and then you wake up and it was like they couldn't find their watch or something.
Right.
And you're all like praying for them, and
Yes. Yeah.
you're all worried.
Another one I would recommend strongly is no internet after mom and dad have gone to bed. Just not a good idea. And so, hey, it's put away. before they go to bed. Think about, well, I don't want to, I guess, do your thunder. I'll let you do your own thunder in this next one.
Location-based restrictions. So, like for us, we have two-story house, so our devices stay on the main floor in the main area. Back in the day, you know, when computers came out.
Back in the day.
Computers came out. We're not going to rap. But people were like, yay, the kids can do their work. And so everybody was like buying desks and putting kids' computers in the room. And they're like, no, get those computers out of there and put them on the kitchen table. And then little devices came out smaller and smaller, and we just let them take them everywhere and keep them wherever. You got to treat it like a computer because it does more than a computer can do, because it can go everywhere and do everything. So create like only in this area, only when, you know, don't have it like in the bathroom or downstairs.
Should never be in a private place.
Yeah.
Ever.
So, and then, yeah. So create those, or a rule could be not at the dinner table, not when we're eating. And that could be for mom and dad as well.
And should be.
Yeah. And then, like, if you're out with the family, say, you know, you're going to the zoo or whatever, and you have teens that have phones, just you got to make your rules before you go, and just, obviously, you're not going to take their phones away, because we use our phones as cameras. That's what we do. We're taking pictures. So it'd be like, okay, you can take a picture and post it, but you're not going to be chatting the whole time to someone that's not even with us or is with us. And just being mindful of that, because, and as parents too, or adults.
And family outings. You kind of, I would say even the opposite. I don't want to throw your friends under the bus, but we went to some friends.
My friends?
Yes, your friends. Remember, we haven't had this conversation yet, so you're gonna enjoy this together. Remember we went to Texas?
He told my age in the first service.
I did. I told her age.
Now he's putting down my friends.
So remember we went to somebody's house, and we were some people there, and one of the kids, the whole time there's like 4 or 5 families there, and one of them,
there was a lot of kids, maybe 16.
There was like one of them sat on their phone the entire time.
Yeah.
I think the rule should go both ways. If you have guests at your home, shut off your phones. You know what I mean? Like if you're visiting someone's home, shut off your phone. If someone's at your home, shut off your phone. Apparently this has happened to somebody else too then. I'm sorry, it happens in my home, I know, but just shut it off. So if you're going to someone's home, put it away. If someone's at your home, God, for God's sake, put it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and just, you know, kids, they're just kids. It's like you wouldn't let them do something else when people are there. You wouldn't be like, you know, people are visiting, but you go, you know, clean out the car and not sit here and talk.
Yeah.
But we do with the phone.
Are we in the last one?
Well, are you doing the charging station? I did
go
that
ahead.
in the first
Oh,
service.
did you?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
You do it.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, charging station. So one of the things that we recommend is finding a place for the electronic devices to sit, to rest, to hang out. And
even if they don't need charging, they go there every
Yes.
night at a certain time.
So if you have something to access the internet, the charging station should not be in someone's bedroom or in a closet or anywhere. It should be a location where all your electronic devices go. That's where they get charged at whatever time it is. Does that make sense? That way you're not having to worry about, hey, did you put your phone away? And, you know, give young people the responsibility to own, if you will, that responsibility. So this is where it goes. If you're not using it, we expect it to go right here. And that will help a lot.
Don't make us come search for it.
Yes.
And we do that when friends come over, which I think we talked about.
Yeah, we did.
Our kids don't really like when we do that, but we'll say, do you guys have a device or anything? Because they need to be up here in this area. And it feels weird asking them, but usually, I mean, all the kids are like, okay, well, here, you know. And then we do ask our kids to do that when they are spending the night at someone else's house. But
which can be awkward, too.
Yeah.
But hey, we're called a parent. Amen?
It's tough.
Called a parent. Hopefully they'll be thankful someday. Let's pray. Worship team can come out. Father, thank you so much for, and I do thank you for technology. I thank you for all the great things it's done. I thank you for the opportunities we've had to share and encourage people and edify them. And Lord, there's a lot of great things that have happened. But Lord, would you help us be mindful also of the many, many dangers that are out there, both for ourselves, but also for the people that we love. Help us to be aware, to not just close our eyes, not to be naive or ignorant, but to Lord, to be proactive when it comes to protecting both ourselves and young people from the many, many dangers that are out there. So guide us, lead us, help us to do that. In Jesus' name, amen.